at the start of this conflict, President Trump told Iranian people the country will be theirs to take once the U.S. is finished. But his focus now seems to be solely on stopping Tehran's nuclear capabilities and opening the Strait of Hormuz. In a column for the Free Press, Eli Lake argues that President Trump should also demand freedom for Iranian citizens in the negotiations with the regime. Eli Lake is also the host of the Breaking History podcast and joins us now to discuss this. We should note the Free Press and CBS News share Paramount Skydance as a parent company. Eli, good Monday morning to you. Let's dive into your opinion a bit more. What does the president need to do to make good on his initial promise? And if he fails to do that, how much does that weaken the moral standing of the U.S. in this campaign?
Well, I think America's moral standing is still largely intact in the sense that it remains a war against the regime. If the president makes good on his threat to attack civilian power plants that largely, are necessary for the security of the lives of 90 million Iranian people, then I think that moral standing is different. But that said, I do think that the negotiations present an opportunity because so much of Iran's nuclear program is demolished and the nearly 1,000 pounds of enriched uranium is buried underneath the facilities in Isfahan and Natanz, that I think that opens up some space in some ways to make demands, not for regime change, which of course they would not agree to, but to turn back on the internet, release political prisoners, particularly those that have been arrested in the last few months and those that were arrested after the June 2025 war, and finally, to end the executions of protesters that have continued throughout the war. Those are three basic things that I think that are reasonable asks in a lot of ways. And even if they don't produce results, just simply publicizing the fact that the United States is asking for these kinds of things, which are, of course, very popular in Iran, and that their own government is saying no, I think puts the United States at an advantage down the line when hopefully there will be enough ferment and unrest so that there will see more people in the streets and hopefully the conditions for a color revolution in Iran.
Well, it's interesting, Eli, because at the beginning of this year, we saw that uprising, that upswell of resistance against the government. And we have heard President Trump and J.D. Vance mention regime change. But in the peace talks, we haven't seen that spelled out. You made a point in saying that even just saying it out loud could carry some weight. Why do you think it hasn't been put at the forefront of these talks?
Well, I think that because there is an opportunity at this point, because so much of the nuclear program is demolished, to take care of you could argue the last 5 to 10%. And if, the argument would be we should focus on what are the core American national interests. I would argue that a core American national interest is ultimately the transition to a better government in Iran. And that is ultimately going to be for the Iranian people to take their country back. But there are, ways in which other outside powers can help. The Israelis have been quite open about this. And I think that just simply making it part of the negotiations, at the very least, would present another set of issues which the United States, even if they ultimately don't prevail, could use as a kind of way to pressure greater concessions on the missiles, and the support for terrorism. But I think that this is the most strategic issue, is that the big strategic win in this war will ultimately be the Iranian people toppling a regime that they have been trying to topple in earnest, I would argue, since 1999. So it's been more than 25 years.
Yeah, we don't seem any closer to it today, but you make very interesting points. Eli, thanks so much for joining us from Washington.
Thank you.